Support for the Heel Tough Blog podcast comes from Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Look, guys, we've all been there. We've all been trimming. All of a sudden, we clip something we don't want to clip. You don't want to do that. Make sure you take care of your downstairs area, just like the Tar Heels have to make sure they take care of Sam Howell. We don't want to have to put the backup in. And guess what? There's no backup for your balls. So that's why Manscaped has redesigned the electric trimmer. Their Lawnmower 2.0 has proprietary skin-safe technology, so this trimmer won't nick or snag your nuts. That's right, manscaping accidents are finally a thing of the past, and come on, guys, don't use the same trimmer on your face that you're using on your balls. Let's just be honest, that is disgusting. Manscaped also has the Crop Preserver, an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer, so you don't have to use any of those powders or whatever. You already put deodorant on your armpits. Why not put deodorant on the smelliest part of your body? Right now, you can get 20% off plus free shipping with the code BIGHEADS. That's all one word, BIGHEADS, at manscaped.com. Always use the right tools for the job. Your balls will thank you. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code BIGHEADS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and use the code BIGHEADS to get your Manscaped product today.
Davis steps under center. Gibson and McClendon behind him. Davis with motion by Richard. Will give the ball to McClendon. He leaps. Oh, he doesn't get in. He fumbled the football. Carolina holds. The game is over. And Carolina has won the game.
Finley to throw. Over the middle, intercepted. Wolford again. Wolford the other way. At the 30, the 40. Wolford to midfield. Miles Wolford with the pick. The Heels on the doorstep of an enormous victory.
Left side of the line. Hood standing to Williams' right. Williams gonna throw. One-on-one. Davis has it. Touchdown. Carolina wins. Carolina is the Coastal Division champion. Bernard fields it at the 26. Heading to the far side. Gio at the 35. Gio, he's at the 50. No, he's not. Yes, he is. Gio is gonna take it for a touchdown. Are you kidding me? Connor Barth for the possible win. Snap, spot, kick away, high enough, long enough. It's good! It's good! Carolina has won the game on a 42-yard field goal by freshman Connor Barth. Good gosh, dirty.
This is the Heel Tough Blog podcast. Hey guys, and welcome into this edition of the Heel Tough Blog podcast. It is Anthony Pagnotta back with you guys. As always, Josh Marlowe alongside me, and we are here to recap a Tar Heel victory and their biggest one of the season as the Tar Heels destroyed Mercer 56-7 on Senior Day in Kenan Stadium. And well, buddy, this was I guess kind of what was expected. I don't think anybody was really overly concerned about this Mercer team. And early on, the Bears showed why. Carolina, 21 points in both the first and second quarter, 42 points in the first half, their most since the 2013 win over Old Dominion, where they scored 49. Really just a completely dominant effort from the Tar Heels from start to finish, and pretty much exactly what they needed for to be ready for what's going to be a huge test on Saturday against the NC State Wolfpack.
Yeah, the guys came out ready to go, didn't overlook the opponent, didn't let the emotions of Senior Day in Chapel Hill kind of get to some of the senior guys. And you're right, this offense, even though it was against an FCS opponent, they were in rhythm. They could do whatever they wanted to do, whether it was through the air or on the ground early in the ball game, and that just set the tone. And the defense made some plays, got some turnovers, and then really, we talked about when we previewed the game, they just needed to gain confidence exiting that game, heading to NC State. And I felt like they did that. And I think something that we didn't mention a lot when we looked at that game was how would Carolina perform in the red zone in this game, because we know that the issues that they've had, and they didn't have any problems in the red zone on Saturday, and so they gained confidence in that area. As like you said, they get geared up to go to NC State. Final game of the regular season is going to be an emotional battle as Carolina tries to get to bowl eligibility for the first time in 3 years.
Well, it was senior day, but the headlines were stolen by some of the young guys. It started, of course, with Sam Howell, who sets the school record, as well as the true freshman touchdown record for touchdown passes in a season, as he gets to 31 and then eventually 32. Got to 31 with the 7-yard touchdown pass to Jake Vargas in the second quarter. Mac Brown, of course, came out after the game, said he wasn't too happy with Sam on that play because he had Garrett Walston wide open earlier in the play, but held on to the ball long enough to try to get it to Jake Vargas to get him his first career touchdown. It works out, and he does end up taking over the school record from Mitch Trubisky for touchdown passes in a season. That was 30 from Mitch back in 2016, and then takes over the true freshman touchdown record in NCAA history, which was held by Trevor Lawrence, and that was set last year with 30 back in 2018. So, man, just what a great way for him to come out. Another just fantastic game from him. I mean, at one point during the game, had a 499.8 QBR, was 5 for 5 with 3 touchdown pass, or no, 5 for 5 with 2 touchdown passes at the time. And then, of course, exited, didn't have to play the second half, but Sam Howell just, again, going through the milestones, and this is a big one for him. First year on campus and already setting the school record for touchdown passes in the season. He's off to a fantastic start to his career, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of expected him to break the record in that game once he started closing in on the record, and he wasted no time in doing so. And look, yeah, he's had as special a freshman season as anybody in college football in recent memory. The thing that's different is Carolina's 5-6. If this was a 8-3, 9-2 football team, there could be legitimate sleeper Heisman discussions about his kind of season because he's just been that good as a rookie.
Right.
And we expected him to have a good year once he won the job because we knew from his high school days that he could play. I don't think we thought we'd get this in the first year. And the funny thing is he broke the passing touchdown records, right?
Right.
And we vented about Phil Longo being too conservative with his arm for how long, and he still broke the record. So
exactly,
it kind of shows you that even if the offense is being limited, he's still going to put up big numbers regardless. So it kind of speaks on the kind of player Sam Howell is now. And then the scary thing is that he's only going to get better. He's going to develop over the offseason. He gets a bowl game that's 15 extra practices. He'll get better there. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of scary for the ACC what kind of quarterback he can be.
Yeah, I mean, not only the fact that Phil Longo was conservative early in the year with his arm, we were also looking at the numbers in the red zone. And, I mean, yeah, they've had some success down there. I mean, 15 of his touchdowns have come down in the red zone. That number, I think, now bumped up to, let's see, the long one to Emory Simmons was 33 yards. The first one was a short. So now at 17. But the other, I mean, out of 32, that means only just over half have come in the red zone. But really, I mean, he's got 15 touchdowns of 20 yards or longer. That throwing the ball through the air, that's ridiculous. I mean, that's just unbelievable. And like you said, I mean, he's only going to get better from here, you would expect. I mean, to come out and do it in his first year is amazing. And, this is a guy, I wrote that in the article the other day as well, that, we knew when he won the starting job back in August that there was a reason that he won the starting job. He was going to come in and do some things and open up this offense a little bit more than what we'd seen the last 2 years. But I don't think anybody was expecting him to come in and be this dynamic. And I'm with you. I think that, Tar Heel fans are wanting to make the argument that his numbers are really that good. Why is he not getting talked about more? I mean, yeah, when you're 5-6, you're not really going to get talked about as much. But the thing is it's setting up to where he's going to have some Heisman conversation heading into next year, and especially if the Tar Heels can get off to a good start against Central Florida as well as Auburn, all of a sudden he could be a guy that could be right in the thick of the Heisman conversation, especially if he comes out and has 2 big games in those games to open the season. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to keep an eye on going forward with his progression, and hopefully he does get that bowl game. That would be huge for him. But the other thing is it also helps that his run game is forming into one of the better ones in the ACC. Tar Heel rushing attack with 376 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns on the ground against Mercer. Tar Heels entered the game on Saturday with just 4 rushing touchdowns the entire season and have more than that in one game against Mercer. Just a phenomenal performance led by Michael Carter, who had 9 carries on the day but turned that into 159 yards and 3 touchdowns to lead what was just a lethal Tar Heel rushing attack. And I mean, this is another unit. We knew they were good coming into the year, but especially if you would have told me that Javonte Williams, who was our leading rusher entering the game, was still having some trouble shaking off the injuries and didn't play a whole lot, and you told me that this team ran the ball as well as they did, I probably would have laughed and told you were definitely lying.
Yeah, and I mean, it started up front. The offensive line created holes for our dynamic backs to get to. And we know when Michael Carter gets in the open field, he's not going to get caught 9 times out of 10. And that was simply the case on Saturday. He just ran away from Mercer. And it was good to see because, like you said, they had 4 rushing touchdowns all year long. And that was 3 from Javonte Williams. I think the other one was from Sam Howell.
Yep.
And Carter, Carter feasted with 3. Antonio Williams got in on the action, and then even British Brooks in the second half was able to get into the end zone. The Firm, as we've started to call them, had their most complete game of the season, and it couldn't come at a better time because if Carolina's going to win this upcoming Saturday, they're going to have to be able to run the football effectively. And we've kind of been waiting for all 3 guys to be hot. Even though Javonte didn't get the amount of reps that he normally gets, when he still touched the ball, was still productive. Mm-hmm. But I think it's cool seeing Antonio Williams these last 2 games really step up. He didn't have a big role earlier in the year because of the success of Javonte, but when the team needed him, he's been able to deliver with 2 big games.
Yeah, and that's something that Mac Brown has mentioned in the past couple of weeks, is a guy that just stuck through it all. Early, before the season had started, we had heard that he was probably going to be that number 3 guy. He would get some carries, and this would probably be a 3-headed backfield. It really turned into 2 guys controlling most of the carries, Michael Carter and Javonte Williams. And unfortunately for Antonio Williams, he was kind of left on the outside, just occasionally getting some reps when needed, especially towards that middle part of the season. But you're right. Once Javonte Williams got injured in that game against Virginia, you saw that Antonio Williams knew that he had to step up, and he's played great the last 2 weeks against Pittsburgh and Mercer, and they're probably going to need him in this game against NC State because, one of the reasons that Javonte Williams didn't play that much on Saturday is because, of course, they got off to a great start. Michael Carter was having a great day, but also they were wanting to try to get Javonte Williams as healthy as they possibly can for that game against NC State. While I do think that he is going to be more healthy than he's been the last 2 weeks, I don't think he's going to be fully healthy considering that he sustained an ankle injury in the game against Virginia and then sustained an upper body injury in the game against Pittsburgh. So, I mean, look, coming into this game, you're going to need Antonio Williams one way or another more than likely. So That's huge. You're right. He's stepped up and played very well, and for him to score a touchdown on Senior Day was big because he's a guy that's only been in Chapel Hill for 2 years, but you feel that for him, Chapel Hill is a special place. He knew coming out of high school, he probably should have gone there out of the gate instead of going to Ohio State, but I think that he's where he needs to be now, and he's performed very well for the Tar Heels down the stretch. And, this is really part of a bigger thing, which is that this offense is ready to carry this team against NC State. Because, look, even in this game, there were, for most of the time, Carolina was dominant defensively. You would expect that. But, again, the defensive line in the first half didn't have a single sack against a Mercer offensive line that, frankly, just isn't that good. So this still looks like a unit that really is going to probably have some struggles against NC State on Saturday. And this offense, it looks ready to go, ready for the challenge of carrying this team to a bowl game. Once again, for the 6th straight game, over 10 yards per completion in the game. I mean, the Tar Heels only threw the football 15 times, but it's still a passing attack that is one of the most lethal right now in all of college football. Then you factor in just how well the Tar Heels are running the football. I mean, at this point, it seems like this offense is ready to carry this team where they need to go, and that's to a bowl game, hopefully with a win against NC State, right?
Yeah, I think this offense has finally formed into what Mac Brown envisioned in the preseason when he said, we want to be the Oklahoma of the ACC, which I think, we kind of overreacted to that because of what Oklahoma has done on offense since Lincoln Riley took over there in Norman.
Right.
But look at what they're doing. They've been able to run the ball against teams that you don't think you could run the ball against. They were able to run the ball against Virginia, Pittsburgh, who had very good run defenses. And they've been able to throw the ball down the field all year long. And now some of the intermediate stuff is clicking for Sam Howell and those receivers. And now this offense can put 450 yards up at will and can get you into the 28 to 35-point range week in, week out. And that's most weeks going to win you a lot of football games. And that's what Carolina is. The strength of this team this year is on offense. And it may always will be with Sam Howell at quarterback. And just like you said, if they're going to make a bowl games because they're going to outscore opponents this year because the defense is just they're that beat up and they're in a new scheme that is harder to learn as opposed to a new offensive scheme. That's just the nature of what the team is built like for this year. But I think we expected that. I don't think we did not get anything we did not expect from Carolina this year. And that's why they're at 5-6. And I mean, to a lot of people, they've overachieved. They're ahead of schedule. And if you can get a bowl game, it's not. Look, winning bowl games, stuff like that. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. You get those extra 10 to 15 practices. That's going to do wonders for a lot of guys. Especially thinking of the guys that are redshirting, and even Sam Howell, some other guys. Just more reps in the system's only going to pay dividends going into next year.
That was one of the big things that when I had my interview with Brant Wilkerson earlier last week, he brought up, which was the practices. And it's definitely going to be huge for, a lot of the guys that are going to be taking over significant spots on the defensive line in place of Jason Strobridge and Aaron Crawford, in the secondary in place of Miles Dorn. That's where it's going to be really big for a lot of those guys, where you're going to have a chance to even get a jump start on finding some of those replacements for the guys that are going to be moving on and graduating or heading to the NFL. I think you're right. And, this offense, the only real concern is the red zone offense. But even still, they looked about as good as they've looked all season. Now, you would expect that against Mercer, but it was really more of the play calling that we saw that was encouraging. The throw from Sam Howell that gave him the school record and true freshman touchdown record. Love the play call where you're getting your tight ends to go across the field and try to get these linebackers and safeties having to move across the field and setting those natural picks that you were kind of talking about last week when we were talking about the red zone offense heading into this game. So I think that there's a lot of encouraging things about this offense as long as they can score in the red zone on Saturday like they need to, instead of having to kick those field goals that I think have come back to hurt them at times this year because they just can't, establish enough space in between teams if they're leading early in games, or find a way to claw a little bit closer if they're trailing in games. I think that'll be really big for this team against NC State. One of the other big storylines that needs to be talked about is, again, look, Senior Day was headlined by all the seniors that were leaving, or the guys that there are a couple other guys like Greg Ross and Jake Waller who will leave early. But really the guys that shined were the young guns. You look at a guy like Raymond Voasic, who won Defensive Player of the Week for the Tar Heels, 5 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and a sack. Really responded well to not getting the start. Jaleel Taylor actually started at what is considered the 4-eye defensive end technique, which is sort of a hybrid defensive tackle, defensive end spot. Basically where they had started Jason Strobridge all year. They kicked Jason Strobridge out to a more natural defensive end position for him, and I thought he looked very good out there. Only finished with 1 tackle, but I thought he had more than that. He looked to be all over the field early in the game, made a couple of really good plays. But Raymond Voasic was a guy that subbed in, and when he was in the game, played really well, not only in the second half, but in the first half as well, and was real dominant. You look at guys like Eugene Asante, 8 total tackles in the middle, taking over for Chaz Surratt after he had a great start and reached the 100 total tackle mark on the season. Kadri Jackson next to him at linebacker with 6 total tackles. And then on offense, really great performances. Josh Henderson getting his first substantial offensive reps. 13 carries, 98 yards in the second half. He's going to be a guy that, with Antonio Williams graduating, he's going to have a great chance to come in and take over that number 3 running back role behind Javonte Williams and Michael Carter, which will still be a big role on that team next year. With the amount of work that these guys have seen this year and we'll see next year, they're going to need that third guy in there. And Henderson gets a leg up with a great performance. Emery Simmons gets his first career touchdown reception with a 33-yard touchdown pass from his roommate, Sam Howell. Played substantial snaps for the first time really all season, and he's a guy that looks the part of a guy that's going to be able to come in and contribute next year. So, the young guns on both sides of the ball flashing, that's extremely encouraging for this team going forward, especially with some of the guys that they're going to end up losing heading into next year.
Yeah, it's just the reason why the future of this program is as bright and why fans are so optimistic as we head into next year is because, we're losing, some guys, Aaron Crawford, Jason Strobridge, on the defensive line, Charlie Heck maybe on offense. But we know that there's talent, in the cupboard, I guess, and that Mac Brown's going to recruit talent to replace what we're going to lose. And then years past, we didn't have the same kind of optimism when this kind of situation happened. And it's good seeing those guys make some plays because you have a little bit more confidence in them when they get in game situations to make plays. Even though it's still Mercer, for those guys, this is their first extensive game action. And we haven't seen them do anything productive because we're not at practice. But now we got to see them go out there and make plays. And now if something happens or of an injury, which we've seen been able to, riddle this team, now we got this guy that can go in there and he can make plays. And it'll be, fun to see those guys grow next year when they're in more extensive playing roles.
Yeah, and the other thing is if anybody's really saying, well, they were dominant against Mercer, let's see them, be dominant against another team. These guys look the part of guys that, are going to play significant roles against an FCS team where they were just so much better than the guys on the other side of the ball, so much more athletic, able to make those tackles in space with ease. that's the type of stuff that you're looking for from a lot of these guys. Is for, if they're going to be big-time players, they're going to come out, and in these opportunities, they're going to dominate. And those guys that we just talked about came out and had really great performances. The best part as well, all of those guys that we mentioned, they are all true freshmen. So expect them to have much bigger roles next year for this Tar Heel team. The last thing that we'll talk about before we shut down the Mercer recap edition of the podcast, there were a couple of fans afterwards that were very critical. A couple of people, also media members as well. Tommy Ashley of Inside Carolina, very critical of the crowd not showing up for the game against Mercer. Again, they announced the attendance at 50,000. Not even close. Not even close. That's, again, just ticket sales. The game was sold out. But I think what someone said was that it ended up being around 18,000 was the rough estimate of people there. And of course, during his Monday press conference, Mac Brown did voice some of his concerns about the crowd on Saturday. Wasn't too happy with the fact that Tar Heel fans didn't venture out. I think that, there's two real sides to this. There were a lot of people that were saying, look, calm down. It's a game against Mercer. It was raining. This is a game that you would expect not a lot of people to be at. If this was a conference game, there would have been a lot more people there. And then the other side of it is that people are saying, well, if we're trying to become an actual football powerhouse like we think we can be, like this sleeping giant that we've been telling people that we can be, we need to show up for every single game, even games like this. Where do you stand on this argument of, not showing up to a game against an FCS opponent in the rain?
Mac Brown talked about the fans. He could talk to me directly. I would have not gone to the game. I told you that up front. I would never go to a game like that because the game's going to be over in the first quarter, second quarter at the least. I'm not going to say it's a waste of time, but if you're a college football junkie, if you go to that game, you're missing Ohio State, Penn State, which had big ramifications in the college football playoff. Georgia, Texas A&M was a big game in the SEC. And then let's factor in that it was going to be cold and rainy. I think Mac may have been wrong to call the fans out in that situation just because, they've been great all year. And you for them to come sit out in the cold, wet rain and watch you blow out a team that shouldn't even be on the same field as you, I understand why they got to play the game. I know they're looking into moving that game up into the year. Right. But there's reasons why people don't show up to that game. I mean, it's effectively a waste of time, other than the fact that you're going to guarantee you get to see your team win. Well, you're not going to learn anything about your team in those kind of games. There's not going to be an environment because the game's going to be over relatively early. You play the game so you help the little guys still stay funded. And more importantly, look at what Carolina's at this year. You're 4-6. You win this game. Now you still have a chance to make a bowl game. That's why the game's there. And that's okay. Just don't freak out when people don't show up.
Right. Well, I get what you're saying. The argument against it is, it is senior day. This is, no matter who it is, each year a group of seniors deserves to be sent out the right way. You can complain about, the opponent, but I mean, look, you don't know what's going to happen when you show up. I mean, if you're taking the FCS mindset to it, you wouldn't have shown up for the game against Liberty back in 2014, and that turned out to be a lot closer of a game, especially earlier on, than we thought. So that's the argument really against it. The rain argument I get against an opponent like Mercer, it makes a little more sense why people weren't there. Look, if it's a conference game, I think you probably should be there, no doubt, because, look, we've seen in the past, games like the Virginia Tech game back in 2016, we went to that, and it was in a hurricane. So, I understand where some of the frustrations are at because, I think that I don't know if it's the fact that there weren't a lot of people there. I think it's the thinking that, you know, we saw this one game with bad weather conditions. You know, we've seen what has happened in the past couple of years where the crowds have just been terrible for every single game of the season. I think that, you know, trying to change the culture and you know, this is only one setback. I think that's the biggest thing, and that, you know, everybody had saw all season how successful, you know, having these great crowds out there was. They just don't want to go back to, you know, what we saw the last couple of seasons. I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't think that anybody should think that's going to happen based on the crowd that turned out on Saturday, but yeah, I think, you know, I can understand where people are coming from, voicing their frustrations a little bit. But at the same time, I mean, it makes a little bit of sense why there weren't a ton of people at the game, especially based on the weather conditions and the opponent. The good news is that next year won't have to worry about that. The latest non-conference game that they'll play was actually just announced today. That'll be against UConn, and that'll be on November 7th. So that will not be the last home game of the regular season. It will be a conference opponent, more than likely a division opponent. And if Carolina is where we expect them to be at that time in the ACC Coastal race, that game will be a lot more crucial for Carolina, and the environment will hopefully be a lot better. So that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Heel Tough Blog podcast and this Mercer recap. As you guys know, the Tar Heels now sit at 5-6 on the season, and so they will get prepared for NC State. That game will be on the ACC network on Saturday, and of course we'll have you prepared with the NC State preview here on the Heel Tough Blog podcast. So make sure you guys check that out. Of course, we have everything that you need from the Mercer game on HeelToughBlog.com. You can go back and check out the Mercer recap, the 4 things that we learned from the game against Mercer, as well as the stock report. See the guys that are trending up heading into this game against NC State. A lot of new names on there as well. Some guys that didn't get a lot of playing time throughout the year making their debuts on the stock report. And then, of course, we will have the trench report coming out for you as well on that game. And then we'll wrap it all up and head on to the NC State game. We'll have that preview coming out for you guys later in the week. That one will be out either Friday or Saturday. Just kind of depends on what the work schedule looks like, but we'll have that out for you guys so you can make sure that you're prepared for everything when we get ready to take on NC State as we look to go to a bowl game for the first time since 2016. So, want to thank Josh for stopping by and doing this recap podcast with us. Want to thank you guys for listening, and as always, go Tar Heels!